As a matter of, there's irony. One day I saw Arafat talk to Barbara Walters on television, and he was talking to an Arabic, and there's translator, and he was saying that he will not allow Jews to live in Palestine. He doesn't want Jews to live in Palestine. And he said it in Arabic, and the translator said Zionists. And I wrote her a letter. I said, this guy didn't say Zionists, he said Jews. The translator said in English Zionists. So the Arabs don't understand. They don't differentiate between a Jew who is a Zionist and a Jew who is not a Zionist. That's number one.
No, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, if you're telling me that there was a pogrom before there was anything real.
There were 27 major pogroms between 1939 and 1947, before the State of Israel.
In which country?
In major Arab countries.
All over.
In every Arab city. In Rabat, in Casablanca, in Algiers, in Damascus.
So if I would assume that the pogrom...
In Cairo and Alexandria.
So if I would assume that the pogrom in Hebron in 1929, in which they literally, they looted, they murdered, they confiscated all the property that belonged to Jews in Hebron, and since then a Jew was not able to set foot in Hebron. And today, there are people who are talking about returning Hebron to the Palestinians, who simply murdered the Jews, took away their homes in 1929, as part of a big plan in all Arab countries of creating pogroms.
I think this is the whole travesty of the peace process and the peace agreement with the Arabs, with the Palestinians and the Arabs in general. We talk to them in terms of their rights, their Palestinian rights, their Arab rights, and we don't bring the rights of the Jews from Arab countries. When Sadat came to Jerusalem, he invited me to come and see him in Egypt. I spent a day with him in Ismailia. And I said to him, point blank, I said to him, I would not show you Yad Vashem, because you always say we didn't have anything to do with the Nazi persecution. But I will show you a monument of Arab persecution of the Jews. That's what you should see. Because we lived under Arab control, especially in the last 100 years. We were worse than second-class citizens. And after 1941, the situation was worse. And when 1948 came, a dark curtain descended over the Middle East, all over the Middle East on the Jews.
In 48, that was like the climax, so to speak.
After 1948, when May 14, 1948, when Israel declared its independence, it was a dark curtain descending all over the Jews in the Middle East. They were persecuted. They were put in internment camps, like concentration camps. I mean, the Arabs were not as sophisticated as the Nazis. So they put tens of thousands of Jews in camps in Amara, in Iraq, in Port Said, in Ismailia, in Egypt, in every country.
Like ghettos?
No, these were camps, internment camps, that's right.
Just they were detained.
Took them from their homes and put them in camps. And as a matter of fact, this is one of the things that forced the Jews to leave, because they wanted to get out of this situation.
What happened to their homes?
They were confiscated.
Confiscated.
Everything.
By the government or whoever?
When my father left with the family, he gave the key to the policeman. The house was completely intact. Everything.
Just like that?
Everything.
As if he made a closing, as if he would have made a closing in the bank and he just sold the house.
Even when you make a closing, you can take some of your belongings away. You take your radio, you take things like that, and just everything.
You just left?
Carpets, rugs, everything, beds, everything.
And this is not a story that you heard someone tell you. This is exactly what happened to your family.
That's right.
Okay, now we're coming back to Iraq. Your family was expelled. Everything was confiscated. You're on your way to Israel. Let's start from the beginning. How ancient and how strong is the Jewish presence in Iraq?
Jewish community in Iraq dates back from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, from the time when the Jews came there.
Destruction of the first temple.
Yeah, before the destruction of the first temple, actually, there were three movements of Jews to Iraq. From one with Yoachim, one before when Haskiyahu, there was an exchange of commerce, and so on. So there was movement of Jews from Israel to Babylonia, from Judea to Babylonia, and then came the destruction of the temple, and came the exiles that came, and And
ever since then, there's been a consistent.
That's right. Baghdad is actually the proximity of Pampedita. So all the yeshivot that was there, as a matter of fact,
the Talmud,
the yeshiva that I studied in Yeshiva Zilcha is the oldest yeshiva in the world. Today is a dump house. It's abandoned.
It dates back
to the first temple.
All the way straight. There was a yeshiva there throughout all these years.
There were manuscripts there that were very old. They were burned in a fire. There was a fire once. It was an arson, and was burned. But
in what time? In the 40s?
In the 30s.
In the 30s.
There was always, the Jews were considered dhimmi, which means that they were second-class citizens, really, and they were under protection of the Arabs, of the Muslims. A Jew could be persecuted at the whim of the ruler or the sheikh, whatever it is. And the Jews in Baghdad lived nicely. There were two types of Jews, those who were protected by the Persian and those who were under the Ottoman rule.
The Turks.
The Turks. Those who were protected by the Persians, they had better rights than the Jews, than those who didn't. So a lot of Jews wanted to maintain Persian citizenship until Iraq became independent after the First World War. And the Jews were very successful in commerce. They controlled all the medical profession, and they were very successful in commerce.
Was that because they were not allowed to be landowners?
No, they had land. They owned it.
They were allowed to be landowners.
Sure, they had.
Because in European countries, one of the reasons that the Jews were so much into commerce was because they didn't have, they were not allowed to own land.
No, the Jews owned a lot of land in Iraq. But so the Ottomans, of course, used the Jews as a whipping rod to control the Muslims. Mm-hmm. So the education was only Jewish. The Muslims could not have schools, and then when the British came and they opened the schools, the first class in the medical school, I went to medical school in Baghdad, the first class in medical school were all Jewish. They couldn't find one Muslim to go to medical school.
Because they were not allowed to go to school.
That's right. But then, now, when I went to medical school, they took 200 students to medical school, and the quarter there was only 10 Jewish students. And after the first year, only 60 students remained in the class. So of the 60 were only 10 Jews remained. The others failed. They couldn't pass after the first year, so they kicked them out of the school. I was kicked out of medical school after I got my degree. They didn't give me my diploma. And I had to go to Israel in 1950.
Because you were a Jew.
That's right. They threw all the Jews out. They came, some of the people who professed to be my friends, and they think that time they came and they said to all the Jews, get out of here, and you can't stay in the medical school. But I finished medical school there, and I had to go to Israel. I went through the exams in Israel, and then I went through a year of the last year, what they call it, the last year in the medical school, and I got my diploma there. I did my internship there, and then I came to this country to train in ophthalmology. So
throughout the years, from like over 2,000, about 2,000 years ago,
2,400 years.
2,400 years, there's been a constant yeshiva and a Jewish presence, right, until 1950, where everyone pretty much was expelled.
All the yeshivot were closed, and